The results from our annual reliability survey are in. We tell you who's the best, we tell you who's the worst, and we tell you what goes wrong with cars today. Next on Talking Cars. Hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Talking Cars with Consumer Reports. I'm John Lincove.
I'm Jake Fisher.
I'm Anita Lam.
And one of the key components of Consumer Reports is our data from our subscribers. And for us here at the Autos Group, it's our vehicle reliability information. It's what people come to us and need to know for the next car purchase, whether it's new or used. And Anita, you're joining us again. It's been a while since we've seen you. Yep. And you are the guru of our vehicle data. But reliability is a key component. Can you tell us a little bit about our survey and let people know, how we get the data and what it means for us?
Sure. Every April, we send an invitation to our subscribers to fill in an online questionnaire asking about problems they experienced in the last 12 months in about 17 trouble areas.
So like engine and transmission and stuff like that.
Right. So they range from major areas such as engine and transmission replacement to minor in-car electronics or squeaks and rattles and all that.
And then what do we do with that? We gather that in, and then you spend every night and weekend for about 2 or 3 months here.
Right. So we have a vast amount of data, some of which is for used cars that we built a very extensive reliability history for used cars. But also for new cars, we are able to predict how reliable it's going to be in the coming year.
And so based on the history of the car or recent history?
It's a combination of the recent history of the model itself, of the manufacturer, how reliable it's been, and also using our expert judgment. Like, we know a lot about cars. Obviously, these guys all test cars.
You mean like him?
Yeah,
okay.
Jake.
We'll get to
So we know that there's really no brand new model, so to speak of. Either it shares a component with some already existing models or it some parts in common.
Okay.
So we are able to predict for every single new model that's out there, whether it's brand new or redesigned or just a continuation of the previous year.
So this year, how many data points do we have in the survey? How many vehicles?
So we received responses on 640,000 vehicles this year, ranging from models all the way back to 2000 to 2017. So
knowing the base of the survey and what we're looking for, what are some of the problems in modern cars? What are we seeing? Is it like the 70s, the engine fell out, my transmission's on the ground or something like that? Or
You had a lot of problems in the 70s, did you?
Yeah, it started for the world when I was born, and it went from there.
All right, so we don't see all these mechanical problems anymore, but it's more to do with new technologies. So like for example, transmission. It's really the new technology as 8-speed, 9-speed, automatic transmission, dual clutch, CVTs are being brought in. They do experience some problems on certain models.
So the dual clutch is what type of transmission?
So it's like basically like a manual transmission that's automated. Okay. So it's just the guts inside are a little bit differently, are done a little differently, but the key is that, as Anita says, it's a new technology. Generally, basic engines, basic transmission technology, this stuff's been around for a very long time, the bugs have been worked out. Suspension problems, we're not seeing that. It's anything that's kind of new to the industry, there always seems to be these growing pains.
Well, so wait, we said transmissions, they've been around forever, and now we're seeing problems with them,
because now they're changing.
Okay.
So we're not seeing many problems with 5-speed automatics, 4-speed automatics, 6-speed automatics. We're seeing the problems, like as Anita says, 8-speed, 9-speed. We're seeing 10-speed automatic transmissions in the market, continually variable transmissions, and these automated manual type transmissions. We're talking about with these people who had a serious problem with the way the transmission is operating, went to the dealer and potentially got this fixed. So we go through this and we look at these reliability reports, and we have not just the ticks, check, 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 but we also have this rich text. People actually write to us. They tell us what their problem was, and the reports, better than I do. But it's like, they're actually, some of them having the transmissions replaced, having new transmission computers installed, having them reprogrammed. Sometimes getting some satisfaction, sometimes not.
So what about infotainment systems? I mean, we're seeing them proliferate through the industry from the most economical vehicles all the way up to luxury vehicles. But they seem to control so much of what goes on in the vehicle. What problems are we seeing?
That's right. So now we have in-car electronics that make use of a big touch screen or a smaller one that controls your audio, your navigation, your music streaming, and your phone pairing, and lots of other functions, sometimes even climate system and all that. And what happened is most often where the screen would blank out, the screen would freeze, so you would not be able to get to any of the functions.
So basically, you're driving a car, and particularly climate. I mean, it's one thing, it's an inconvenience not have the radio, or even your phone. It's another thing if you can't adjust the temperature or what have you in the car, or use a map because you're in the middle of a trip. What it sounds like a lot of it is that new technologies from transmissions, new technologies with infotainment, we're all beta testing cars. Is that the truth?
Well, I mean, anytime there's a new technology that's on the market and you want to be the first ones to go get that technology, yeah, you are kind of an extended beta level tester because not all the bugs have been worked out of those technologies. Those two issues, though, what's interesting about if you look at infotainment and you look at transmissions, yes, they're new technologies. Yes, we're seeing a raft of problems with them, but they're very different in the way we weight them in terms of determining what cars are reliable. A serious transmission problem is obviously much more severe than I can't get to my music library or something like that. I mean, well, it depends on.
Gosh.
And obviously,
can't use my phone. Oh my gosh.
Obviously, not getting to your climate is probably more severe, but still, a transmission problem is more severe. The ones you got to be scared about is when a new model comes out and everything's new, because it's very hard to get all that new stuff right at the same time. But some of the smart manufacturers are doing this. They're coming out with a new model, and they introduced that engine 2 years ago in this vehicle, and they introduced the infotainment system a year ago in some other vehicle.
It's a carryover transmission from the previous generation.
Exactly.
So knowing how we build it, knowing how we get our information, these mid-run issues, what kind of news do we have from the survey? One of the big things people are going to ask is who's number one? Who's at the top? And it's no surprise. It's Toyota for now the 5th straight year. And why is Toyota and Lexus always up top?
Well, they're able to build very reliable cars because they are being conservative, I think. So they never really do a complete new design on a vehicle. They always carry some components while introducing other new parts. And also, Toyota and Lexus have a lot of models that are in common. The Lexus models are mostly more luxurious versions of the Toyota, but they never redesign at the same time. Like the Ford Expedition and Lincoln Navigator, they're going to be both redesigned for 2018.
Okay.
So you kind of learn by launching one model, you learn some lessons or whatever, work out some bugs, and then the other one would benefit from it. I
mean, they've carried the 3.5 liter V6 and 6-speed combination for so many years. Like your point. So there were some big surprises with this. First one being big surprises in our survey. First one being Chrysler. Chrysler Pacifica performed pretty well for a first-year model, right?
Right. Yeah. Pacifica was really a brand new minivan that Chrysler has that under its own design. It not only tests well, but it managed to get average reliability in our survey, which is quite good for Chrysler. Well,
and as a brand design, it wasn't something that was carried over from Mercedes or.
Right. I mean, many new Chrysler products, they're really inheriting a lot of parts from Mercedes-Benz and from Fiat, which have kind of hit or miss in terms of reliability from those brands. So this is kind of a very important product for Chrysler because they're kind of left to their own devices to actually build their own vehicle.
They were trusted enough.
And wow, I think they did a really good job. We already said so when we tested it. The thing was, it's a very competitive model to its peers.
It's great with the hybrid, with the mileage. It's fantastic mileage.
Absolutely.
Yep.
So yeah, this is actually bodes well for the future of Chrysler.
So, looking at Chrysler, I mean, Pacifica up, that's a lot of positivity. Going almost the opposite direction is Acura, which really fell this year, fell a number of spots in our survey. But why are they falling apart? Particularly when Honda did fairly well in the middle of our brand ratings.
So the MDX in 2016 had the new 9-speed automatic transmission, which did not do well when it was introduced on the TLX.
Okay, so that's the sedan,
So that-
and the SUV is the
Yes,
MDX, right?
yeah, and which also new infotainment system. That both of those gives it kind of lower its reliability.
Almost like the double whammy we talked about before. New transmission, new
New
infotainment system.
system.
Anything else about Acura, or is it just, are they, because they're such a small brand, they're hurt by a couple big,
Right, exactly.
big vehicles dropping?
Right, so they have a small range of products, and when one or two of them didn't go well, then it kind of hurts the average score.
There's another manufacturer that kind of went on to what Jake was saying, suffering from the whole everything new, and here it is, go out and buy it, and that's Mazda. Because Mazda really dropped, and they put in new powertrain, or partially new powertrain, in their CX-9.
So I would put Mazda like this. Mazda has been kind of soldiering on as very reliable vehicles because, as Anita says, it's kind of a conservative approach, right? While everyone else is putting in turbocharged engines to try to get more power and more fuel efficiency, they're kind of sticking with very traditional powertrains, traditional transmissions,
Skyactiv.
traditional engines, and they're able to get fuel efficiency and reliability. And then suddenly the CX-9 rolls in, and suddenly you expect a V6 and a big 3-row SUV. Well, they went another direction. They did a small displacement, turbocharged 4-cylinder engine that tries to get the power and the fuel efficiency of a V6. And lo and behold, we're seeing some problems. So it's a big redesign, a new technology that they haven't been using in the past, and it looks like they fumbled a bit on that.
So what were some of the problems that our subscribers were telling us about?
So some of the problems that the CX-9 has was, again, the infotainment, of which I think the Mazda is not the most intuitive infotainment system to use.
So when it's failing, it's even more problematic for people.
Right. So it's also some of the power equipment and the other. But the other surprise for Mazda was the Miata. So traditionally, the Miata has been very reliable, but it has some problems with the manual transmission and the convertible top.
Interesting. So, I mean, Mazda's pretty much always had pretty good manual transmissions. They've been ranked up there.
They redesigned that manual on that Miata. Not sure why they did that because it was a pretty good one to be beforehand, but there's some issues with it, which is disappointing because that was kind of the poster child of
reliability.
Yeah.
And a small manufacturer, so again, hurt a
Sure.
lot by a couple of models. We talked about surprises, both good and bad, but in the top, Toyota and Lexus. But we also have to have a bottom. All surveys are going to have a best and a worst, and the worst of the survey is 2 domestic manufacturers. Tell us about.
So the worst is actually Cadillac. This year, Cadillac did not do well at all. All its models were below average. So the Escalade has long been, since its introduction, has had problems with its transmission, with the torque converter, and the drive system.
And that's kind of similar findings we saw with the Chevrolet and the GMC, big trucks and big SUVs as well, which all share components.
Yes, exactly.
It's pretty disappointing with Cadillac because they just keep on coming with these cars that drive so nice and they're really very competitive, but without the reliability there, they're really struggling.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is, so while Cadillac is the least reliable brand, if you look at the least reliable models of any of the models, they're new models in terms of the predictions based on the previous data that we have. They're both SUVs. They're both luxury vehicles. They're both very complicated, and one is
Looking over your shoulder.
Oh yeah, that's one of them. Well, one is the Cadillac Escalade, which
Right.
is no surprise, but the other one is the Tesla Model X.
Speak onto the complexity. I mean, I think a lot of Talking Cars viewers probably know what we've experienced with our Model X, and what we talked about.
Well, I'll
but
tell you
what
something
are
that we experienced with
telling?
our Model X is it hasn't broken. We actually haven't had problems with our Tesla Model X. That's not how we do reliability.
Right.
We're looking at the data that comes in. And what the owners are having problems with is, again, the needless complexity of this vehicle. The Falcon Wing doors, the rear hatch, the seat mechanisms, there's even glass areas with a huge glass windshield in the front. A lot of different components, body hardware we've seen some issues with. So, and it's such a shame because the other side of the table for the Tesla Model S, we've seen improvement. So while it was average last year, for the first time ever, it's actually above average this year. So they're getting the core design of this platform right, but all those gizmos that they threw on top of the Model X is really...
Well, long running, and you say they work out the problems, they work out the bugs, as a vehicle evolves along its life.
Right.
And the S is finally really
Well, the S
really
is above,
risen.
above average, but it was average before.
Yep.
So, I mean, the core, and we see this with electric vehicles. I mean, there's no reason why electric vehicles should have reliability problems because they're so simple, right? No transmission, no gears, no the cooling system. All that stuff is much more simpler.
So what is this bode, or how is this bode for Tesla with the upcoming Model 3? Because that's huge. I mean, they've almost hand built and they have relatively small numbers. This is going to be their car for the people.
Well, the Model 3 is going to share the components, the drivetrains from the Model S. So we are going to predict it to be at least average, based on it also doesn't have the complexity of the hardware like the Model X.
So basically we're using, like you talked about before, you're going to use the reliability of the S and the X to give the Model 3 a prediction for going forward.
Right, exactly. And clearly the Model 3, I mean, there's differences with the Model S, but we are definitely looking at it, and there's a lot more in common with the S than the X. And particularly the problems we're seeing with the X, we don't anticipate you're going to have those issues with the Model 3.
Yeah, no big wing doors and
Right.
stuff like that.
I mean, it seems that they're consciously trying to make this Model 3 more simple. And that should bode well. I mean, clearly there's going to be growing pains, and they're figuring them out right now. I'm not going to make any predictions in terms of whether or not they're going to make the numbers that they promised.
That's a whole different
I'm not
show.
even making a prediction of when we're going to get our own car. But as they increase the production, what they've learned in the Model S should transfer, and hopefully what they've learned in the Model X does not transfer.
So if people are looking for more information on vehicle reliability, they should go to consumerreports.org. In addition, we really want to hear about your experiences with the reliability of your vehicles. So go to consumerreports.org/talkingcars and send us a video, 60 seconds or less, and give us your story on how your car's been performing. As always, thanks for watching, and see you next time.